This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good morning. It's the March 1st Commission on Disabilities meeting. I'm looking, we are missing so far, Eli, is it Jeff? And then, because we have to do roll call. So who, is it just Jeff? Oh, never mind. Jeff is here. He's just under a different name. All right, so we have everybody. Oh no, we don't have Jeff Brown yet, and Bryce. So I'll keep a lookout for them. Okay. So what I would like to do first is we have a speaker from the Department of Mental Health. That's Earl Miller. He's gonna talk for maybe 10 minutes and let us know about the services over there. Go ahead, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Earl Miller. I'm the Director of Recovery here at the Department of Mental Health. We're located in Northampton. Probably important for your role. So the department intentionally has lived experience roles in the leadership part. That's me at this point. So we actively employ folks with mental health experience for us. I hope this is the first of many meetings. Actually, our area director, Julie Schwager, lives in Easthampton and would love to meet you all. She's your neighbor. So I'm hoping that we can find a time later down the road. What we do is provide services to folks across the Commonwealth with serious and persistent mental illness. I recognize that folks don't always identify with that language, so we kind of don't demand that people do that. We really look at the kind of interruption to their lives. So I don't know how familiar folks are with DMH. We're kind of, we in Western Mass have the biggest size area. We cover all the way down to the Connecticut line, all the way up to New York. We have 6 sites. We have Springfield, Holyoke, Chicopee, Westfield, the Berkshires, Franklin, North Quabbin, and then the Hampshire site, which obviously covers you all. Our Hampshire site director, Anne-Marie Martineau, I don't know how many of you know Anne-Marie, retired last Friday. Really wonderful public servant. I hope you get to meet her at some point. So we're in the process of hiring for that position. Trying to break it down. So really, we provide services across the age spectrum, from group living environments, so group homes, to programs like Adult Community Clinical Services, which is a wraparound clinical program. The provider in your area is ServiceNet for that contract. Just to give you a little bit of a flag, when folks hear about the crisis services at the hospital, or that you might access, they often think of us. We do not oversee those. That is overseen by the Department of Public Health. So if you're mad at us, be mad at us for a different reason, not that one. We have case managers, really wonderful clinical folks who are providing support to caseloads up to 25. We provide services for families from family partners, which is a really wonderful opportunity for families to partner with a parent who's been through the system before. To after school programs, there's a really wonderful one pre-COVID in Franklin that used to take a canoe trip down the river. I'd love to have you all meet Sean Berry, our CYF director, who is thinking about the kids in our area all the time. Pre-COVID is a hard time to think about, but things have shifted a lot for us. So we're providing more teleservices. Our case managers are meeting with folks by phone, but in person. We are working remote to some degree, but we never actually stopped meeting with people. I think we had maybe a week where we hung back a little bit, but even during that week, we were meeting with folks. And in our area, we don't have a state hospital, although you know we're all in the old state hospital building. If you ever want a tour, I think it's a little creepy, but you might like that. But we do use Vibra in Springfield currently for our continuing care unit. So for folks who need a kind of longer term complex care, trying to give you guys all the hits. I'd love to take questions as much as I can. The other big thing you'll hear about that's probably on everyone's mind is that we contract with local police departments for CIT, crisis intervention training services. And we also provide grants to police departments for a co-response in which a police officer responds with a clinician. And we're in the process of piloting a really exciting thing in Springfield of having peer specialists do that co-response. So we have one gentleman currently doing that. It seems successful, but it's only been a couple months, so I won't say it's finished yet. That's the really broad overview. I'll say there's 100 of us working for all of Western Mass. The department is fairly small. Most of our services are contracted out. There's 5 areas in the state. We operate as all Western Mass things do, a little bit different, kind of by need. So most of our services are contracted, and yeah. So that's the broad overview. I don't feel like none of you look like I've completely lost you, which I'll take as a victory for this morning. Do folks have any questions?
Can you just explain how somebody might apply for services?
Yeah, fair enough. So we have really shifted over the last few years to trying to have a kind of no wrong door approach. So most therapists, most clinicians in the area have our application for it in their offices, but anybody can fill them out. You can find a DMH application by going to mass.gov. They're in pretty much every language you can find in the Commonwealth. A person just needs to fill that application and get it to 1 Prince Street. They can mail it, they can drop it off, whatever works. And then we have a clinical team that'll do the oversight and do the processing. A big thing is for someone who needs our services, they might be struggling to put together the history of things, right? That's natural. They're going through a hard time. So by all means, send in an incomplete application. We'd love to have a full one, but if not, we'll take what we can get, and then our service authorization team will hunt it down and get the rest of that information. And then we have a needs and means group that meets at the site that'll kind of determine what services folks can get into. Just a reality of our world. I don't want to trick you. Our services are capped. We have a kind of a limit of how many folks we can have, but we also have services like mobile respite that can work with folks while they're on our wait list. And we're really trying to move through those as fast as we can. The other opportunity I would offer all of you is that REA Blowers, whose information I will get to Angelique after the meeting, is our service auth coordinator. She loves to talk to folks about that. It's her job. So if you have folks who are working with folks who you think may need DMH services, she'd love to talk to you and potentially come meet someone before they fill out an application to get a sense of things. One of the really common things that comes up is we're in this emerging world with folks who have autism diagnoses, and a lot of the symptoms of that can look similar to traditional mental health symptoms. DPH is funded for that, so it often becomes a matter of which door do they come in. It doesn't matter for us though, because if we run into them needing to be referred to DPH, we can still send them over there. So that's really good. The other piece I want to just share is that there's an increasing recognition of the relationship between mental health challenges and substance use. So we're really shifting all of our services to be able to provide medication-assisted treatment, to really see substance use as part of trauma, and trauma is what gets folks in our door. So it used to be, I know that folks who maybe have navigated the mental health system historically have found it confusing which door you're supposed to go into. Over the last 5 years, we've really tried to shift that to show up and we'll do the work we can to figure out where you need to be.
I have a question. You said that you're responsible for ServiceNet.
I wouldn't say responsible for. We contract services with them, so the adult community clinical services. And the other piece that's important is we do have a complaint process for folks who are receiving services. If you run into someone, actually, Robert, who's joining you, I think, aren't you part of our human rights group? So actually, you have a really good person here. We have a whole human rights process. So we oversee that contract with them. They have contracts with various other providers. Yeah. So the answer is yes and no.
I see. So I have a friend who's a residential client of ServiceNet. Do you have any? So is that something that you're part of your contract?
Potentially, there's a lot of residential services. One of the things I can offer is I can put my phone number in the chat before I go. If you want to give me a call, I can figure out whether if that person, we can figure out who the right person to talk to for that person is,
Okay.
and make sure we get a response back for them.
I'd appreciate it because the conditions that she's the treatment that she's been receiving, I consider cruel and inhumane, and is not helpful at all.
For folks who don't know, I don't know if you've ever heard of DPPC, the Disabled People's Protection Commission. If you do run into someone who has a disability and you believe that they're in a dangerous situation, the best thing to do is to file a DPPC. They're essential intake for all folks who have disabilities. They can refer it out to a protective agency. You can do that and also reach out to us, but that's kind of the main reporting line, and you would never want someone to wait if they're in a dangerous spot. And I can put that number in the chat too before I go.
Thank
We
you.
did have them as a speaker actually a couple months ago.
They're really nice people.
Yeah. Do people have questions?
What's the general criteria these days for receiving DMH services?
Yeah, so, yeah, please. So it's usually the kind of challenge has to be somewhat life interrupting. So often the example that I hear from folks is, you know, we all have anxiety. These are anxious times, right? This is maybe the most anxious time in my life. The difference is for some of us, we're able to kind of continue moving through life. For folks where that anxiety may cause them to be unable to leave the house, for example, or struggle to kind of keep up with daily living activities, or where it's affecting their relationship to their ability to engage in relationships. The thing I would suggest is if someone thinks they might need DMH services, the worst thing that can happen is our folks go, well, you haven't reached this level of care, and they'll still refer you to someone else. So it's still a kind of worthwhile initiative. I will say that the kind of mental health of the world, but particularly our area, is at a hard place. People are really struggling, and we're seeing that for folks who kind of were in isolation for a really long time. Coming out has had a real cost. That folks have developed new fears and new challenges, and so you know, we've been really lucky. We're funded through allotments from the legislature, and they've been, you know, fairly generous with us. We're expecting though that we'll need to increase our capacity as folks are challenged by what happened in the last couple of years. Sorry if that was a very political answer. What I really mean to say is it's hard times all around, and we're trying to do our best to meet the need. I don't think anyone could say that we completely have it covered. I think nobody was prepared for COVID, and it certainly has had a tremendous effect on the mental health. In schools, although I'll say we were able to offer additional support. So we have everything from resources for teachers who need support, who are experiencing crises of their own, to school social workers who just for statistical points, social workers are experiencing a 10% increase in kind of suicidal ideation across the country. And you can imagine that the last couple of years have been really challenging for those folks. So we're really kind of trying to target supports as much as we can. And we have some new services coming online, including a Safe Havens. If you've never heard of a Safe Havens, I hope you will. I hope you'll go check it out. Safe Havens is a rapid rehousing program that takes about a year-long program. It can be up to a year. That has a 97% efficiency rate. So kind of all the other stuff doesn't matter. Very few things are 97% effective.
Yeah.
And there's a new one coming online in Hampshire.
So I'm more familiar with like the children's services like flex funds and after school program. Is there like a big difference and with adults and children?
Yeah, I would say the big difference is, especially if you've been in those family meetings, they're big. There's a lot of folks advocating for kids. For our adults, there's generally not so many folks there advocating for them. The kids services also have DCF, which is an entitlement, and so you have a little bit of a different weighing of things. And adult services, we are a voluntary service. For kids, we're voluntary for the family. For adults, we're voluntary for them. So one of the frustration points that sometimes folks in the community have is, well, DMH won't like fix that person. That's not actually kind of, I don't know how to fix people. If you figure it out, you let us know. But really our work is engaging folks, trying to get them to, we believe that recovery is probable for everyone, that it's the most likely result, and that we have to be flexible. So sometimes that takes time. Sometimes it's not necessarily the easiest or fastest process, but we find that working with folks at their pace really does allow for sustained change. And we try to keep folks in their community. That's our mission, is to keep folks in the least restrictive setting of their ability, in the community of their choosing. So that if you ever run into frustrations going, why won't DMH just kind of pull this person out? That's hopefully not what we're supposed to be doing.
Does anybody else have any more questions?
So I'm going to get my number in there. I'm going to put the number for our building and the human rights officer number, Eli, so you can talk to those folks too. And then I'll put the DPPC number in there. Angelique, I'll follow up with you around Julie coming. Obviously, it would be nice for you all to talk to one of your neighbors. Thank you for coming. We really want to partner with folks. If you're ever looking, I imagine you're all very involved here. If you're ever looking for even more opportunities to get involved, we have an area board and site boards for each of our sites that are always looking for folks to get involved. And thank you. I appreciate the work you're doing.
That's
Thank
great.
you for coming.
You.
Do you have a chat button? I don't have a chat button for some reason.
Oh, I don't. I'll email all the stuff to Angelique.
Okay.
I'll email to Angelique, and then Angelique, if you could forward it to folks.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I hope you all have a great rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
I hope you have a good day. Yeah, I don't know why there's not a chat. Great. Just a reminder that when we have a speaker, to put yourself on mute, just because we can hear background noise when people are not on mute. So, okay, so we need to do the minutes approval. Did you guys, did you say anything that needed to be changed in the minutes? Or do you want to look at them now? Or can we make a motion to pass them?
I will move to approve the minutes as written.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Okay,
Everybody okay with that?
who is that? Who seconded?
Mary.
Mary.
Thanks.
Hi, Jeff. All right. So, I just want to remind everybody that today's a little bit of a longer meeting because we do have the contractor coming at 11 because they couldn't make it at the regular time. Eli, I am not sure if I'll have to leave at 11 for my dental work, but if I do, then I would have to put you in charge. If not, then we're good to go.
All right, got it.
So I'm just waiting to hear if I have a ride. So, all right. So the next part is the commission elections. We're supposed to do them every January. Last year we did it in February, I believe. So, are there people that would like to be the chair or the co-chair or the secretary, other than the people that are already it? So I want to give everybody a chance if you'd like to do that job. No. Okay.
Could you tell us who's doing what? I'm not sure I totally know who's doing what now.
Yeah, so I am the chair, and then I accepted that, saying that I wanted to have a co-chair, So that's Eli. And then the secretary, we actually don't have one. We need one. We did have somebody named Kelsey and they couldn't make it to meetings. That passed on to Kate, who I think maybe went to one meeting and then she can't be on the commission anymore. So now we don't have a secretary. Eli's doing double duty over there, trying to take some notes, some minutes. Jeff Bag, can you just help me again with this process? Because do I have how I do the elections? This can I hide?
Well, like for example, what would happen, I think, is someone would, in theory, nominate you to be the chairperson, and as long as you would accept that, then people would vote on that, and then like you could nominate Eli, for example, to be the clerk or the co-chair. The committee would vote. But so that's usually how it goes. Is that, you know, we want to make sure that people want to do the task, but you've been doing a good job as the chairperson. I think, you know, unless someone is really eager to do it, or unless you don't want to do it, I think, you know, one way it would work would nominate you to be the chair.
I'm fine with doing it. Oh my goodness.
Okay, I make the nomination for Angelique to be the chair.
Second,
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna nominate Eli to be the co-chair. So I previously spoke with him to ask if he was okay with that.
And I am.
I second that.
And everybody's okay with that?
Yes.
All
Aye.
in favor?
Yes.
And do we have a nomination for a secretary or a clerk or? No, we can put that on hold, or you can check back in with me at any point in time.
Is anyone willing to do the clerk? The clerk is important stuff to take the notes for the minutes. Is there anyone who would want to do it?
Just a question, Jeff.
Yeah.
Are these, is there a transcript of these meetings available?
I missed what you said. I didn't hear the word you said. A transcript?
Yeah, are there transcripts of each meeting available?
No, not. I mean, I think the idea with minutes is that if you had the topics, the agenda, and just a general summary, you know, that's kind of the task of the clerk.
Thank you.
So do we just put that on hold then? And what do we do? And then, Louise, do you have a question?
Yes, sorry, but what Marty just said, isn't there a recording? 'Cause
Yes.
there's recordings all Zoom, and I mean, on a different committee, I found those very helpful for taking minutes, because if you miss something, you can replay it.
Yes. Yeah, it's recorded, but what exactly, which part of that are you saying would be helpful?
Oh, that if somebody wants to take the minutes but isn't sure they're catching everything or something, you can sit there
Oh,
and just play it afterwards once it goes on YouTube a few
Right.
days later, makes it
That's
that easy.
that's very true. Okay. Okay. All right, so we'll have to put the secretary on hold, unfortunately.
The only thing with that is that someone should be taking the minutes for this meeting.
Eli is.
Okay, great. All right, so we should pick somebody at the next meeting. Or we could rotate it is another option. Some committees do that.
Okay.
But we can probably put that on the agenda for next meeting. Maybe the rotation idea is just get a little practice trying to do it.
Right. So
Okay.
who takes the minutes can rotate, but there still should be somebody who's responsible for it, right? That's the secretary.
Is that what you're saying, Jeff?
Yeah, generally, unless someone wants to be mean and just nominate somebody. Yeah, maybe we can talk about it next time. But I agree with Eli. Yeah, the person would carry that responsibility that rotates.
The only reason I wouldn't want to be mean is because I don't know of people's limitations with typing or what have you. So I can figure that out behind the scenes or try to. Okay. Next on the agenda, recruitment efforts. I guess Robert's here, right? Did you see it on Facebook, or you're still on mute, Robert?
Yes, I saw it on Facebook last week.
Oh, good. Okay, so we I think have a total of 3 openings. So Robert applied for one. My dog's applying for another one. Fantastic. Okay. I just wanted to say that I went back in and I talked to the IT department. They did give me a COD email account. And they also did give me permission for a Facebook account. I had talked with, is it Karen or is it Corinne? Kareen? Okay, Kareen. And said, you know, in the past, this is what we've been told. And she said that there are various different new policies that allow us to have those things. So I'm going to set up the Facebook page, and I'm going to also give the information to Eli so he can help me check the email and Facebook page. And if you guys have ideas and stuff, of course, message me. When I have it set up, if you're on Facebook, I can notify you so you can check it out. Good. Okay. Eli, do you want to help with the survey subcommittee update?
Let's see. I don't know that there's,
We put it on, we had it put on.
Yeah, yes. Oh, so yeah, the update is that the automatic summary from Microsoft, right, that you put up on the city city website, right? But in terms of like, but most of what we want to do is still on hold because we can't figure out how to do it, right? Which is how to create like a real like substantive report, right, on this.
Right. So Jamie did put it on the town Facebook page, but Jeff or Jamie, can you put it on the planning, the results on the planning page? I think Jeff disappeared. All right, when he comes back, I'll ask. So yeah, what to do with the results exactly? Oh, Jeff, can we put the results on the planning page?
Yeah, I would probably ask if Jamie had the ability to do that. I think we can. It went up on the City of Easthampton page.
It did.
So sometimes what we can do is we can take that and we can share that planning page, and it touches all the people who have liked the planning page. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes.
All right, Jamie, would you be able to do that?
This on Facebook?
Yes.
Yeah, I can work with Jeff to figure out what we need to do.
Okay. So the rest of the okay, so on the accessibility, I'm sorry, on the survey subcommittee, we're still at sort of a stalemate on what we're doing with the results. So what were we talking about, Jeff Bag, last meeting? We each had a few things we were supposed to do. So like, I got that up on Facebook. So what else? How are we going to put it into something that can be useful to you?
What I recall talking about the last meeting was sidewalks. I think that was the thing that I mean, I don't know how to do everything. I have a little wheelhouse, and I think that sidewalk kind of accessibility was something that I think we could work on. The folks that are going to come at 11 are going to do a couple other things. I hope that they talk about this, but one example is people who access the services at 50 Payson Avenue, City Hall.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about whether the signs are appropriate for the people with like a range of people with any disabilities, and so maybe there's upgrades that we can start to target for that. If the idea is that you look at the survey results and then you want to try to pick some projects that commission can work on over a period of time to try to resolve it. I don't think we'll be able to solve everyone's problem, right? I mean, that's the loftiest goal, but I think if we can look at them and find projects that are manageable, and especially where there's money attached to trying to solve the problems, that's kind of what we do. It's a long-term kind of look at what to do with those results. So I don't think there's anything that's immediate.
So are you just going to attach it to like something, or do we need to do a write-up? Like potentially.
Muted myself. I mean, I don't remember that the planning department initiated the survey. Like it was something that this group wanted to do. So I didn't really have a plan per se as to what to do with everything. And I think that's still something that the commission needs to kind of work on as a group. And it may take some time, is to come up with some action items out of it. So I apologize because I don't really have a clear view of it at this point.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that we were like that if we were supposed to do something, we were doing it in a timely manner. So Marty, go ahead. Oh my gosh.
Wondering if DPW might have a log or information about complaints that have come in over the however long regarding sidewalk issues, and whether we could access that if it exists.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, Marty, I don't know that they'll have that. I mean, the city gets various input all the time, but I think it's always a process to prioritize the projects that are going to provide the most benefit to the most number of people. So there are some that are, sometimes they're very unique or specific, and those are harder to move forward than the ones that would help the most people. So I think it's a great question, Marty. I think this group has talked about a bunch of different things. I think one thing that we still haven't really moved the dial on, which I would target for next winter, is looking at the list of sidewalks that get cleared by DPW. As one thing, because it may not seem like the most important thing, but in terms of the work over the next 9 months, to get ready for next winter, that is possible. The way the DPW director has explained it to me is that, if there was an agreed upon list of new sidewalks to plow, then the city would take that list to their subcontractor and get a cost, an additional cost to clear those walks during next winter. And then they would have to go to city council to get more money to pay the contractor to do that. So, that was something that we talked about. Even that has, that could take 9 months to get kind of oriented for next winter. One of the next meetings, I can try to give an overview of projects we see on the horizon in terms of sidewalk improvements. It's sometimes it's hard because we have the list, we have 2 plans that list out all the sidewalks that are in need of repair. And then it's really a process where the funding match, when we find the right funding source for that project, that's the one that usually gets elevated up. But I will say one that we're looking at is Holyoke Street. So it's one of the longest stretches. The DPW wants to repave it. And I think while we're repaving it, we're going to look at the sidewalks that are adjacent to Holyoke Street, you know, and make sure that all the crossings of the street are ADA accessible. And there have been a lot of people who have raised concerns about the crosswalks. There's 2. So upgrading those. But then, you know, that's on a list for like 2024. So, you know, but that's kind of how it works, is like we're 2 years out and we're looking at that street, for example. So, you know, that might be helpful. But I think going back, sorry if I'm being long-winded now, but going back to the list of sidewalks that could be better for snow clearing, you know, that's a big project, but it could be manageable to get set up for next winter. So that's just an idea of, because I think that came up in the survey as one of the things. And that's what we often do, is we have survey results and we try to find a project that we can work towards accomplishing, you know, that shows that we heard the survey, you know, we got the survey results and we tried to do something with it.
Okay, I'm going to write to the DPW again because they didn't answer me the last couple of times. So I'll give it a try. Yeah, as far as the survey subcommittee, because a lot of you are officially members now, like we're going to have to have a day and time and post it, and there's going to have to be minutes and stuff like that. So do you guys have, or maybe, you know, after the meeting today, we can talk about the next meeting so we can do just that and come up with these smaller projects so we can figure out if we can handle them or how to handle them, or are you guys okay with that? With me checking in about days and times? Because I think it's going to have to be like, start to be the same day and time for the next couple of months. Since I have to take minutes and stuff like that. Jeff Bag, do you have any information on the little snippet that you wanted us to take a look at of writing for the PSA?
I don't have anything on that, but I did finally got a update yesterday from Easthampton Media, and it sounded like they did finally get some footage of snow removal kind of happening on sidewalks. That was kind of the main, that was at least like kind of the main goal, is to get some actual footage from the winter. I haven't seen it yet, but I think what I thought from the email was that there was an invitation for us to work on a little script. And then, you know, I think this is the big question is, you know, like Angelique and maybe Stan, you know, if you guys wanted to look at a script, or if someone else too, and go to Easthampton Media, I think there's an opportunity to have your voices go over the video and say, you know, say something and kind of work on the video if you wanted to. I mean, I think that's like an invitation for anybody on the committee, but I don't think we need everybody, but people who might want to say they're on this commission and work on the PSA. I think I was waiting for the footage, and I think they were waiting for that last storm. I think that happened on Friday. So I don't know. I haven't moved the dial much after that because I was waiting. I just heard from them yesterday.
Okay.
I would be happy to participate in that.
All right, Stan, me and you will chat.
Yeah, you can include me on that too.
Okay. I'll write that down. Okay. And then the other thing was about the accessibility. I wrote to Kareem. My gosh, my puppy. I forwarded the email to you guys. I don't know if anybody can get it quicker than I can. She really just was talking about using like the Google Translate, I think that's already on there.
Was this for the meetings, accessibility to the meetings?
Yeah. Yeah. So we had drafted an email, sent it to her. She then responded saying that we sort of already have it. I then had a conversation with her saying, no, that's not exactly what we were asking. And then she kind of put it on hold for a minute. So I just wanted to try to pull up the email. Okay. She just said use Google Meet instead of Zoom. Google Meet has real-time captioning. Can be translated to Spanish or of course, she asked if we were looking for sign language interpreters, but I don't think that's in the budget. So it's kind of on hold, I guess. Because Stan, I did ask about like the other Otter, is that what it was called?
Sure.
Yeah, she wasn't too, I don't know, she didn't have a lot to say about it.
I found another option this week called ADA, which seems like it has a lot more features than Otter in terms of being a communication tool that anyone can put on their phone and use to communicate in real time with other people who have smartphones and have the application installed. And it's supposed to be, from what I've read so far, accurate to mid 90%. And, you know, there is a free version of it. I wrote to them explaining how we wanted to use it for meeting annotation for city council and stuff like that. But I haven't heard back from them yet. But I believe I sent the link for that to you, Angelique. Did I send you that link from ADA? No? Okay, I will get it out to the whole group, and you know, we can all take a look at it. They have a lot of different options, and you know, it may be useful for us, it may not, but we should, you know, at least take a look at these automated ideas. And if we can find one that will help both live meetings and recorded meetings, that would be even better.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On meeting notices, is it stated that if you need accommodations, please contact us? Do we have that anywhere on any meeting notices?
Yeah, I believe that all agendas get posted with that notice.
Okay, because I haven't seen it. So I was just wondering because, you know on everything that came from the state, when I worked there, it said, if you need special accommodations, please inform us.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a keyword. I would say there's a keyword, which is reasonable accommodation. So it's not any, but it's like a reasonable accommodation. And I'll be perfectly candid and say that I'm the ADA coordinator. I'm listed. I'm the person who's listed to be contacted for reasonable accommodations, and I've never gotten a request.
Okay.
I've been in this position for 4 years. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's that people don't know that that's there. And I will also be candid, is I'm not exactly sure what I would do if I got the request. Like
Right.
it depends on the request, and that's something that makes me feel uncomfortable saying that, but I think it's a real thing. I don't know what a reasonable accommodation would be in this land of Zoom. We've gone entirely digital, so it really is. I think it's important. It's such a new space. We've never really had all these because before a reasonable accommodation would be making sure that the room is accessible or that there was an elevator to get to the space, and then from there, that was what most of the reasonable accommodations kind of were for. But if someone asked for, for a meeting to be signed while it was happening, like I I don't know how we would do that. Like, I don't know how we would reasonably accommodate. Jamie, I don't know if you've encountered that in your time here or not, but
I know that there are services that we can, with enough notice, we can contract, which is why the reasonable accommodation comes with enough notice request.
Yeah, usually it's about a week's notice.
Yeah,
for some.
it might take longer the first time we're doing it, obviously.
Yeah, but if somebody's seeing the agenda, right, that means there's probably less than a week till the meeting.
right.
Very
I
true.
wonder if it'd be worth cultivating some volunteer people to do that. I have no idea if people would be interested in that, but it seems like it might be a
Right.
reasonable thing.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that either. Yeah, Stan.
When we did the survey, did we gather enough information to know how many of our constituents do sign? Or
No,
without
we should
signing?
have.
No.
We
Okay.
should have. That would have been a good question. We did so many rounds and there were different people on the commission every time, like we revamped it, and like it just, I think we lost some good questions, and then
Okay.
people it was long, so then people cut it down, but like that's, you know,
Yeah,
that's actually a very straightforward, good question that should have been on there.
yeah. And I have to say, like, if it was me asking for accommodations, like the effort of asking for it and being prepared for an answer of no, like that would make it like not like too much for me. So I think that is probably part of the explanation of why people don't request accommodations.
Right. Yeah, that is, Jeff. I feel right, like I'm not in your position, but also like I feel silly saying, if you need accommodations, contact us, and then not really knowing how to get those accommodations.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to be careful that, you know, if someone asks, I will respond, I'll figure it out. I mean, it says that it asks that any accommodation requests happen as far in advance as possible. And it does say, while the city will attempt to fulfill all requests, those received at the last minute may be possible to provide. I'm just trying to say I've never gotten one.
Yeah.
I think we don't, I mean, over time, we can tell everybody that if they want to come to a meeting, we'll make an accommodation. But I think we have to use the word reasonable, and we have to understand that if we need to bring in a subcontractor who can provide, you know, signing of a meeting in progress, then, you know, that may take a week to bring that person on board. I'm just saying I've never had requests, so it's my job. I will work hard if I get the requests. I'm just,
of course,
just being candid with the group.
Yeah.
Right.
But if it's something, you know, this group is embarking on a lot of great conversations, and they're really important ones. There's just things that are going to take time to work through.
I have a question. Do you, Jeff, have a list of contractors who could provide possible reasonable accommodations, such as signers or translators? Because you could probably get someone, but if they're not on contract with the city, then you wouldn't be able to use them.
Right, Mary. Yeah, no, we don't have that list. We don't have that.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, that would be useful. But yeah, we don't have a list at this point. So we would have to seek a proposal. I mean, I think that there could be a way, you know, we could probably get somebody, I'm just guessing at this point, but within a week, we could probably find someone who could come to a meeting and accommodate that request. Whether it's a permanent situation, you know, that's a little more, that's going to be a lot harder. You know, we need to be responding to the request. I think what where this started was a little bit on the easier side, which is Angelique, I think I was finally figuring out who you were talking to. You were talking to Karen Camahorn, and she's the IT director. So on one hand, the city's moving to Google Meet at some point. And once the city moves to Google Meet, and I think this live captioning option should be built in. I think that's what she was suggesting, is when we switch to Google Meet. So that is one thing that we can do at some time. The rest of it would be responding to a request. I see Luis' hand.
Luis?
Yeah. Jeff partly answered it, but I've been meaning to ask, and I've been trying to find out from the city, since we are on Zoom, why we don't have closed captioning enabled, much less chat as well, which came up earlier, because for somebody who's hard of hearing, which I am, they're transformative. And I don't even know if those could be worked in, you know, now that we're in this great technological age, those could be, could help some people once we go back to in-person or hybrid, but question. Just pointing out, it's not the same as ASL, but it, you know, it would help a lot of people in that middle ground.
Right. I don't know how to turn it on personally. Like,
I don't think you have it, or you'd see the option. Sorry.
Yeah. I think with the closed captioning, I'll just give you what I know. I mean, closed captioning, I think we will be a lot closer to doing that when we switch to Google Meets. I think that was one of the reasons why the IT wanted to move to Google, is because they had that option. With Zoom, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but with Zoom, it's an additional cost, and we have multiple licenses, so it would have increased the cost of those. And I think the trajectory was leaving Zoom and going to Google. I'm not the decision maker in any of that. I'm just kind of saying, I think with Google, it's going to be easier for closed captioning. I think with chat, unfortunately, in this day and age, I think chat was being used for people who were hacking into meetings. And I think in a lot of public meetings, a deviation from the way the meeting would get run to use chat. So I think it's just been taken away from all city boards and committees, just as not a function that we're using. Luis, I know that doesn't help what you were suggesting. I just think if someone made that policy at some point with Zoom and the chat function, it's just off of all city meeting opportunities, as far as I know. But
do you know when we might be going back in person?
Another great question. What I saw the other day was that the governor is going to allow digital meetings until July. So it was going to end in April, and then they pushed it to July. But you know, each town will make a separate decision. Something that Luis said was the hybrid. But I think that's something that my understanding is that was going to be city council's kind of project and decision as to how that was going to work, and we haven't really heard much on that lately.
Yeah, I have a slightly off-topic question about Google Meet, which is every time I've tried to join a Google Meet meeting, I've been asked to log into Google, and I don't know how we can have an open meeting if people can't join without logging into a Google account.
Yeah, Eli, we had heard that at the beginning, and it's not supposed to be that way. So there's a setting or something that I should get you in touch with the IT person, because that had come up and it was not the intent. And so there's supposed to be a way that you do not need to sign into Google to use Google Meets.
Okay.
I'm not the best technologically advanced person, so there's something, but it's not supposed to prompt you to do that.
Go ahead, Marty.
You have to figure that out. All right, thanks.
This is somewhat related to that, but the sound quality is terrible. There's background, maybe it's me, but I'm hearing background noise a lot. Can everybody mute themselves? I don't know if that would make a difference, but if you're not speaking,
yes,
keep yourself on mute. And so let's see if it improves.
That's what I was asking earlier, especially when we have a speaker. To just stay on mute. Jamie, go ahead.
Angelique, I think it's something with your speaker and microphone because it keeps, on my computer, your screen keeps highlighting as if you're speaking.
Even when it's on mute?
No.
Okay.
So when you're not muted and someone else is talking, there's feedback.
All right. Usually I keep it on mute, but okay. Thank you. Stan, go ahead.
Jeff, I have a related question. Since all of these options we're talking about, whether it's signing or technology solutions, are going to cost the city money in one way or another. I was reading through the emails that I got this past weekend from Angelique about the MOD reports, MOD, and they talk about a big grant solution that they have, which over the past few years has given out several millions of dollars for disability grants to communities. And I was wondering if we might be eligible for some of that money to, for example, pay for the signers or buy technology that will do a good job of closed captioning or, issues like that. And Angelique suggested that I should bring it up to you.
See, Jamie has her hand up too. If Jamie wants to chime in first.
So we did get one of these MOD grants, which is the consultants that we'll be talking to everybody in a minute. It is the first step is creating or updating our self-evaluation and transition plan. Once we have an updated plan, we can apply for future grants. A lot of the MOD grants though are focused on removal of architectural barriers, impediments to physical disabilities, not the other disabilities, as far as I'm aware. So I don't know that we can use, apply for grant funds to do like an operating expense, like targeted translations and things like that. It looks like our consultant Jim Masik's here and has something that he wants to add.
If I may, hello everyone. So you're right. It's not, you cannot use those grants for operational expenses. But a lot of towns and cities we've worked with, we identified they haven't had the assisted listening systems. And then subsequently, after the plan has been produced, those communities applied to purchase the assisted listening system. So it would allow you to buy equipment, but not operational type uses like to hire a sign language interpreter, that sort of thing.
Well, it's 11 o'clock. So yeah, so we're gonna have to wrap this part up because Jim is here. Did you just want to say who you are? And then you can.
Yeah, I just had to unmute. Yes, Jim Masik. I don't see Mike Kennedy, my colleague here yet. So just a little background on myself. And I don't see any familiar faces, but I am familiar with many people in Easthampton. My prior life, pre-retirement, was as a professional planner, like Jeff and like Jamie, 40-some years, and 32 with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, overseeing his community development department, and also serving as deputy director. And during that time, I also, for many, many years, did my own consulting work outside our region, mostly in Worcester County, and specializing on self-evaluation transition plans. And the past 10 years have partnered with the Center for Living and Working out of Worcester. They're a disability organization. And we've partnered and between the two of us, agencies, collectively probably have prepared between 30 to 40 of these self-evaluation and transition plans. And I think in the past 5-6 years, I've probably done 20 to 25. So, that's the background. I don't see Mike here yet, but I can start if you'd like, or if there are any questions.
Mike is here.
Oh, okay, good.
Yep.
So
Hi,
maybe
good
Mike
morning,
can do a
every-
little intro.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Just for us on behalf of Center for Living and Working, and in partnership with Jim Mazik, who you've already been speaking to, and some you already know. Just thank you for choosing us to administer your ADA self-evaluation transition plan. We look forward to working with you. We've already worked with, we've been working with Jamie and Jeff, and just say thank you, Jamie, for making all these arrangements for us, and our, site visits that we're going to be starting on next Monday, the 7th. So hopefully the weather will be cooperative, and looking forward to getting back out to the western part of the state. I'm a UMass Amherst grad, so I know the area well, and also participate in, have participated in the universal access programs, especially the hand cycling that I enjoy doing, and between Amherst, Hadley, and the Hamptons. There's a lot of great bike paths out there. You guys really rock when it comes to that. So, I will, now just, turn it over to whoever will be running the meeting, and, look forward to answering any questions or concerns that you may have.
You guys can go and explain. Jeff, do you have anything you want to say? Jamie?
Yeah, I just want to give a little background, sort of jumped in the middle, but we've been applying for the last 4 years or so for these to MOD to get grant funding to conduct this self-evaluation and transition plan. We finally received the grant funds, and thanks to Jim and Mike, we're able to scope out what the project would look like, and we were given by MOD the amount of money to hire these consultants to conduct this work. So basically what they're going to be doing is they're working with every city, department, and agency to do a self-evaluation of that department or agency's programs and services to assess whether or not that program or department is in compliance with ADA, and if not, coming up with recommendations for how to better comply. And then we're also going to be looking at every city facility, buildings, parks, schools, etc., looking at those physical accessibility, how people would navigate those spaces if they were not able-bodied. And again, then that will result in the report and a prioritization plan for removal of those architectural barriers. And so Jim and Mike are here today to talk to the commission and introduce themselves. They're going to be around the city for the next few months, reaching out to different agencies. And it's important that the Commission on Disability understands what they're doing here and what the plan is for this project. And so I think that's the brief of it. Jim, you want to talk a bit about what specifically you're doing, and Mike, I know you guys are kind of splitting the tasks and who's responsible for what. So,
yeah, if I can, first, Mike never gives himself enough credit. So he also sits on another subcommittees for Mass Office of Disability. There's a working group now on changing the regulations under 520 and CMR. He's also chaired his Commission on Disability for, oh my God, I don't know how many years, 15, 20 years, or close to that anyway. So he has a lot of experience, and plus with his work directly with CLW. We do have a bit of a presentation. It'll be similar, just we have another meeting tomorrow in Easthampton. It'll be very similar. little bit of background, want to go in. Some of you folks may already be aware of this, some of you may not, so some might be, repetitive. Mike's going to talk a little bit. When I talk about the background, also the format of the plan that we do, Mike will talk about the self-evaluation piece. And then I'll specifically go back into when we do the building assessments, the format of that report. So, as you may be aware, the American Disabilities Act was signed into law back in 1990. So that's what, 33 years ago. It's a civil rights law. It's meant to be that there's equal access to all programs and services, and regardless of physical or mental impairment. There are 5 titles under 521 CMR. The first 2 titles deal specifically with municipalities. The Title 1 deals with equal employment, and Title 2 is basically it's specific to local jurisdictions and municipalities. That's in Title 2 is where requirement for a self-evaluation and transition plan, the self-evaluation of programs, policies, procedures, practices, and then the transition plan essentially is the assessment of your facilities. And as Jamie had noted, to identify the areas of that have barriers for access. The other titles, Title 3 would be your private spaces that are open to the public. It could be, stores, restaurants, malls, that sort of thing. The various mill facilities that have been converted. We have events and businesses in those in Easthampton. Title 4 is telecommunications, and Title 5 is like more of a catch-all, including there's some training and guidance provisions in there as well. So unlike most states in the country, Massachusetts also has its own guidance on barriers, on accessibility, and that's a section of the Mass State Building Code, 521 CMR. But it is different than ADA. ADA is a civil rights law, and 521 CMR is strictly a building code. Any action required is triggered primarily as a result of the construction. So if it's all based upon the value of the building versus the amount of work that's being done, and that would dictate whether it's just the work being done has to be made accessible, the work plus maybe something else, bathroom, entrance, that sort of thing, or if the whole building must be made compliant. And the ADA, again, is different. So ADA could also include such things as relocating a program or service, altering a program or service. It doesn't always require a structural means of resolution. And there are specific differences with 521 CMR and the ADA 2010 ADA standard. And that's something that we run into on a regular basis. And I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but when we do our assessments, we look at the higher standard that would come into play. And again, the last part I'll talk about, the specific report we do per building. The plan format that we do, basically we have 4 sections of the plan. This is the plan we just did for Southborough, and it's probably about 300 pages long. Just finished it up this past summer, late summer, early fall. We have what we call a front end piece. We have then the self-eval piece. We have the transition plan, and then we have the appendices. And the appendices would include the survey form and the memo we send out, and also any recommended policies or procedures that we are going to recommend that be changed, or that if you don't have that you adopt. And we also have a list of funding sources as well for different ways to address these that have been identified. So the front end piece, we have it pretty standard for most of the plans that we do, but then we modify it on a regular basis as changes come up and about. So we like to have this document served to you as like a one-stop shopping center on accessibility. So on the front end piece, we include more specific language on the ADA, what those 5 different titles and provisions are. We provide other federal accessibility laws and regulations. We have another section on 521 CMR and go into that and, you know, what the different thresholds are for compliance. We have a section on alteration to historic properties, because there are exceptions with historic properties, and there's a process you have to go through in order to get those exceptions. Something which is not specifically addressed in either 521 or the ADA, because at the time these didn't exist, EV charging stations. There's guidance issued by the state on EV charging stations, and there's also standards on both levels dictating some of the things which would apply, such as parking space being level, i.e. 2% or under, the charging station component itself being within reach range. So we have language, we have a chapter on that in the manual, so in the plan, so that if you're going to put in EV charging stations, unfortunately, Mike and I were just at a brand new school. It hasn't been accepted. I know you could have similar circumstance. You haven't been there yet. Elementary school in Northbridge, a $45 million school, and they have 2 or 3 EV charging stations out front. One is in the accessible, you know, one of the accessible handicap parking spaces. And the charging station, although the hose mechanism, or whatever you would call it there, is within reach range, the payment mechanism and the control buttons above that are not. They exceed the reach range requirement under 2010 ADA standards. So, you know, we're unfortunate to tell them that, and they'll have to figure out how to replace that charging station. But section on that is guidance in the plan. We also have a section on emergency preparedness planning for persons with disabilities. The feds are basically looking at this now as a regular means when you deal with emergency preparedness plans. So I think we have 3 or 4 or 5 pages dealing with that. We also look at and talk about the differences between an emotional support animal versus an ADA, a service animal, and because there's been issues on that. So again, you can go to that and say, well, what's the difference and what can you do and that sort of thing. And one thing that Mike and I come across quite a bit, and especially the outside rec areas. So your portable toilets. So there are accessible portable toilets. Unfortunately, I'm going to say 99.9% of the accessible portable toilets that we come across are not ADA compliant toilets. So if you're paying a vendor to supply you with an accessible toilet, it should be ADA compliant. Why is it not? Because typically the toilet paper dispenser is located over the grab bars. That's not allowed. The soap dispenser for sanitation purposes is too high, not within reach range. So if I'm in a wheelchair, I can't reach it, access it. There might be a mirror in there and it's too high, I can't use it. And there's not sufficient clear width either on the far side or the front of the toilet. It's just the same standards apply with those portable toilets as with a regular toilet stall or a single user stall. So we specifically provide what the requirements would be for an ADA compliant. We provide some photographic examples of that as well. So we kind of like that as a front end piece. Make that available for municipalities as a resource in general. So the next part is self-eval, and then we again transition and appendices. I'll turn it over to Mike, and he can talk about the things that we typically look at in the self-eval. There's like 11 different areas, but he's going to highlight a couple of what the primary ones are. And I'll turn it over to Mike.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Just like Jim said, our goal is to have this final plan be like Jim said, a one-stop shopping. Something that would be complementary to say your city's master plan. So that being said, the self-evaluation piece involves in general under the ADA, the town in its entirety, when viewed in its entirety, needs to have all their programs and services and activities available and accessible for people with disabilities. And in situations where that might be an issue, such as meetings being held in a location that's not accessible for someone who uses a wheelchair. Some programmable accessibility items could be relocating the program to a portion of the building that might be accessible. So if it's upstairs and there's no vertical access like an elevator or a lift, then have it on the bottom floor if that's accessible to get into. And if the building's not accessible at all, then move it to another building in Easthampton. Other programmable accessibility items could be having documents available in alternative formats, meeting notes or I don't know, proposed plans. Or documents could be made available in large print for people with visual impairments, or Braille for people who don't have vision at all, or just have it available in electronic format for people that rely on screen readers like JAWS that can read out the text for them. Some of the other requirements of a ADA plan is to the city or town needs to designate a responsible employee as the ADA coordinator. Responsible is probably not the best word for it. The ADA coordinator actually has to be a paid position in the city or the town. And I believe Jeff, you stated that you're the city's ADA coordinator. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yep.
Good. That'll be one less question I have to research on. The other another piece is to adopt and distribute a public notice of the municipality's ADA policies and procedures. Adopt and distribute a ADA grievance procedure. Back on the policies and procedures, let me, the residents and visitors of Easthampton know that if there's a accessibility issue, we have policies in place to address that. Grievance procedure, if someone feels they didn't get the services they deserved, or they were passed over for a job promotion solely because they have a disability, that's what the grievance procedure addresses. And then I kind of touched on already, a policy in place to, modify or, update policies and procedures, to ensure that they're accessible for, all residents and participants, in a meeting. And, maintaining and, upkeep of accessible features. What Jim and I are encountering now is, we are, today's the first day of March, yay. But we've been doing some of our, municipal buildings, surveys in the wintertime, and snow removal is not done properly or done at all. You can't tell in this Zoom meeting, but I'm a T6 paraplegic and use a manual wheelchair to get around. So, unshoveled walkways to buildings, for me, that's a problem, big problem. So, that's a very important feature. And then providing auxiliary aids or services to ensure effective communication and participation in meetings. So maybe someone might need again, large print documents to prepare for the meeting, or maybe they need an assistive listening system if they're hard of hearing. So, those are just some of those, things that we need to do. And I'll just briefly, touch on it. But one of the things I'll be really touching on tomorrow is we're going to be sending if they haven't already been sent out, a self-evaluation survey for, department heads and, commission committee, chairs to, fill out. It's a 12 question, 12-point questionnaire on all different, things that I touched upon, like, do you have a policy in place if someone has trouble with communication? Do you have assistive listening devices or any other kind of auxiliary aids available for meetings? Things of that nature. And preferably when these surveys are filled out, that they'd be filled out in some kind of Word format, something that is easily copied and pasted. So I can put a spreadsheet together and get a real good assessment of where everybody is in the in these self-evaluation questions. And finally, about those, there's not a wrong answer if you don't have a policy in place to address a issue. You're not a bad person. Just say, no, we don't have a policy in place at the moment. And what that does for Jim and I is, it allows us to, give you a sample of a policy that can address that. And both our contact information is available for you to either call us or email if you do have questions. Jim and I are very approachable, and we want to make this a good two-way conversation. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn it back over to Jim, who can go over the site access assessment process, and give folks an opportunity to ask us any questions. So go ahead. So take it away, Jim.
Hey, thanks, Mike. So this is, I don't know if you can see this or not. So this is a assessment. We just finished a plan for the town of Halifax. If you don't know where that is, it's out near Bridgewater in Plymouth, Mass. Each facility assessment is its own individual report within the plan itself. This is the Halifax Town Hall. It is roughly 13 pages long, just for the one building. 2 pages of photos, probably like 11 pages. So what we like to do is provide a general description of the facility. So for example, 2-story wooden frame structure built in 1900 whatever. If there's any specific features, we'll add that, what the use is for, and so on. We like to include the representative photograph of the site, who the responsible party is, whether the board is select, if it's Public Works Commission or Fire Commission, whoever the responsible party is, school department, school administration. And then we have it usually about maybe 2 pages or so, you'll see here, a narrative description of what the areas of non-compliance are by area. So it's like exterior, interior, bathrooms, if the stage, level 1, level 2, whatever it is. So if you don't want to go into the details, which I'll get into in a second, you can quickly read this in a narrative format and say, oh, geez, these are all things that are wrong, so we have to do. So we have that format. Then we go, and you'll see this here, you probably can't see it, very specifically in a table format. Will include what the area of non-compliance is, the federal code, the state code, a detailed description of what needs to be done to remedy the non-compliance. And then we have priority, feasibility, timeframe, and cost estimate. So for example, we would have, if it's a, let me think here for a second, a water closet in a bathroom. So I'll say a unisex accessible bathroom and the water closet. And would specifically state the water closet is 16 inches above finished floor to the top of the seat, which is 1 inch too low. The water closet is only 15 inches from the near wall, which is 3 inches too narrow, and so many inches from the far wall, which is so many inches too short, and whatever it may be. And the flush control is not on the approach side or the wide side. And then we'll cite then in that next column. Again, I mentioned either we'll mention the ADA code specifically, and then the state code specifically. So if you want to go, you can quickly go and do a reference check and say, oh yeah, you're right. It should be 18 on center, not 16 on center. And then we identify specifically what the action needs to be. If the toilet needs to be relocated so many inches to be 18 on center, if you need to maybe purchase a thicker seat rather than replace the toilet, you get an extra inch to get that height of 17 to 19 inches above finished floor at the seat height. Whether it be removing a grab bar, lowering a grab bar, raising a grab bar, moving it closer to the interior wall, whatever it is, we specify exactly what needs to be done. We use a system on the last 4 columns, next 3 columns rather, priority. And we assign it on a 1 through 4 scale, 1 being getting into the building, getting into the facility. 2 is access to programs and services within that facility. 3 would be access to a bathroom facility, and 4 would be anything else. Feasibility, we have a 1 through 4 rating again. 1 would be anyone can do it. Any person could do it, essentially. So the example I always use is, let's say you have a defibrillator in a hallway, and it is 42 inches high, and it protrudes out 8.5 inches from the wall. It's in a hallway. It's an accessible route of travel. It's a protruding object. So anyone here could go and take a wastebasket. It could be a little table, place it below that defibrillator. Now you've got an item for cane detection, which if I'm sight impaired, I will go around that defibrillator and not bump into it and probably hurt or cut my shoulder or whatever, my face or whatever it may be. So priority, that's feasibility 1. Feasibility 2, let's say we're installing tactile designation signage or installing a lever hardware on a door, replacing a knob style hardware. Maintenance or DPW can do that. We get back to that toilet description I gave, water closet. If it needs to be relocated 2 or 3 inches, that would require a plumber. So that would be feasibility 3. And let's say it's something much more complicated, where you're going to have various design options. You have to hire an engineer or an architect. That would be feasibility 4. Time frame, we have immediate, near, or long-term. Immediate, and we have, depends on when the plan is done. Immediate is like within the next year or 2. Near is like 3 to 5 years, and then far would be 6 years and to maybe 9 years beyond the starting point. And then a rough cost estimate. And the cost estimate is based upon past work, past experience, online research, making some quick phone calls, to an architect or engineer or construction, what's the latest you're getting on this, that sort of thing. And we try to just put some kind of ballpark estimate of what that cost would be. With prices right now, boy, it's getting tougher to really nail down a cost because prices are fluctuating up and down. And the facility I mentioned a Southborough plan. You can get stock for its tactile designation signage. You can get stock signage for maybe $35 if it's like room 1 or room 2 or just a bathroom. But if you want to start to make it specific to that room and maybe by name, so it'd be the, let's say if it's in the town manager, if you have it, I know your mayoral form of government, but it's town manager's office, or it could be some other physical services office, it becomes more costly. And the facilities director in Southborough was telling us that his costing him $125 for a sign specific to his room if he wants to, not just the general name and that sort of thing. So, that's the format of the plans. When we do these, we look at the higher standard. So, and there are variations, and we're finding this a lot, Mike and I, in some buildings, especially some new construction buildings, where not always the, I'm not going to try to, I'm making an assumption, I'm not going to point fingers. But offerings on plans references are to compliance with Mass State Building Code. That's great. Unfortunately, Mass State Building Code and the 2010 ADA standards are not always in sync. Prime example is with reach range. So reach range under ADA is up to 48 inches. Reach range under 521 CMR is 54 inches. So you might go into areas and a bathroom stall, and you go in there, code hooks at 54 inches, non-compliant. It should be at 48 inches. And new construction is finding that because it's not being looked at in the code. The same thing goes with, there are variations in bathrooms, and I don't really fully understand why this is the way. In bathrooms, under the ADA, the reach range of 48 inches applies for dispensers. Order 521 CMR is very specific to dispensers and bathrooms at a height of no more than 42 inches. So when it comes to a towel or soap dispenser, and now it's in a bathroom, it's going to be 42 inches, no more than 42. So we look at those things, we basically apply the more stricter standard. It even gets more complicated when you get into schools because the ranges vary according to age group, pre-K, K to 3, 4 to 6, and then 7 and above. And again, ADA and 521 are not 100% sync on those. So, it's a bit of a challenge. We do look at tolerances. So there are allowed tolerances depending upon your range. So I believe it's up to 2 inches. I'm looking at my notes here. It's 1/8 of an inch, up to 36 inches. It's 1/2 an inch. Over 36, it's 1 inch. So for example, under the ADA standards, a glass pane on a door can be no more than 43 inches above finished floor. That means because if I'm in a wheelchair, I can visually see as well anyone else. If it's higher than that, I can't see. So if that glass pane was at 44 inches, when we measure it, we deem it as acceptable because that's within tolerance. If it's 44.5 or 45 inches, no, it's not acceptable. And we give a couple options on how to remedy the situation. So we consider that. We also consider when we look at areas which are limited to the public, or actually the public is not allowed, and the positions that use those spaces must meet strict physical requirements to perform the essential functions of their jobs. We address those in a way that if there are areas of non-compliance, they wouldn't need to be addressed necessarily at the present time, as long as they remain closed to the public, or unless there is a reasonable accommodation request. And the example specifically would be, might be areas which are used solely by DPW personnel, their break room, the maintenance, your mechanics garage area, that sort of thing, the fire bunk room, fire day room, and police locker rooms, that sort of thing. However, areas such as a meeting room, the general office areas, no, those are used by the public. Public is not restricted there, so those would be addressed. So we look at those and treat those in a way that those areas would only need to be addressed if, policies change in the future. Where that doesn't come into play, and we've run into this, we just ran into this in Northbridge as well, in the police station, where the civilian dispatch, who aren't required to meet strict physical requirements to perform the essential functions of the job, also use the bathrooms of the patrol officers, and those bathrooms are not accessible. So in that case, those bathrooms would need to be made accessible, or other provisions made, or other bathroom created for those civilian workers to utilize. So, that's the plan. I mean, that's the format. That's how we approach it. Typically, they run a couple hundred pages in length. And I'll open up for any questions that folks may have for Mike or myself. No questions?
I have a question. Thanks for all that information. I think it's really helpful. This group, we had the meeting, the commission had the meeting right before you joined, and one of the things we were talking about is, accessibility to meetings, especially, what the world we're living in now with Zoom and transcription and things like that. We kind of see the potential in the future for a hybrid type of meeting arrangement where people are in person and accessible, remotely. Is that something that you think you would cover somehow in terms of the services that the city is providing? Because I think one thing that we really want to see in this plan, I think, is that may be an issue. And if we're identifying it as an issue, and it's a big priority, then we want to be eligible to pursue funding in the future to help resolve that. That was one of the things. So that we've talked a lot about sidewalk accessibility. Yep. And I think I forgot that I think we actually owe you kind of like looking around some sidewalks. We talked that Union Street is going to be redone, and I think we want to substitute your evaluation of Union Street with some other street. But so, those are just a couple quick things that this group has talked about, and Stan or Angelique, or anyone else, if there's other things that you kind of wanted to throw towards the consultant and see if how they would address them. I think that this would be a good time to do that.
Can I respond to you first on your questions or comments? So yes, sure. So I mentioned the front end that we have put together, and that was something back a year and a half or 2 years ago. This same question came up. So now we have a section on virtual meetings in our quote front end. MOD did issue some guidance, I think in June of 2020 or 2021. And we have some excerpts from that, but also some other language about guidance on virtual meetings. But that also would come up in other areas that we look at, because the notifications should on the virtual meeting notifications, which are a little bit different than your regular public meeting postings, also need to have language in there, as any public meeting posting should, on who to contact, when to contact in advance number of days, for persons with a disability who needs some sort of assistance, whether it be sign language interpreter, whether it be whatever it may be, if it's a meeting in person, whether it be with assistant listening system, whatever. So that is generally covered in what we normally look at, but also we do have guidance in the plan about things you need to consider on virtual meetings. And hybrids are good. I mean, Mike and I have participated in them ourselves, and they for the most part, with the right equipment, they've worked okay.
Yes, and if I can add, from what I understand, staying on, what Jim's saying is, the state at the moment is still, is on board with, hybrid meetings where you can either participate in person or virtually. And I know statewide, the disability community, I participate in, many, statewide accessibility meetings, whether it's, updating the, 521 CMI to be, more in tune with 2010 standards for accessible design. The virtual hybrid meetings are, are still accepted, and we as a community, hope to keep it that way, and we don't see any reason why it shouldn't be that, because we've made a lot of strides in being able to participate in meetings. I mean, and in some ways, like today, this was very convenient and easy for me to participate in the meetings and this meeting, and for Jim, I mean, most of the plans we've been working on have been in the Central Mass area that, which is Center for Living and Working's service area. So, Jim is also a big fan of the, virtual meeting hybrid. So in that respect, yeah, we certainly can, make sure what we have in place already is still what's happening, and just see if there's any other anything else that we're not aware of. But Jim's right. Mass Office on Disability has issued guidance on virtual meetings and their accessibility.
I don't know if anybody else has any questions. Can you just give a quick summary of sort of next steps? And forgive me because I don't recall, like, if there's another opportunity for this commission to be updated, maybe before the plan is done, or along the way. I forget where we landed with all the meeting arrangements.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a meeting tomorrow with the various department heads. Mike and I are planning on initiating the field assessments. Well, I'm assuming, back up a second. So then the manual survey form would need to be distributed, and that's either, if it hasn't been, then soon. So that allows us to start looking at the whole self-eval piece and policies, procedures as we delve into your other materials that we receive. We're going to be beginning the field assessments on Monday, starting with municipal office building and then public safety complex, depending upon what happens at the end of that day, where we are. We would be scheduling possibly again for a follow-up for other buildings on Thursday. So ideally the month of March, got my calendar here, we'd like to, ideally, nothing's ever ideal, but ideally, you have the buildings, the public buildings completed, public. Now, when I say that, I'm just saying the field work. So typically it ends up being, for a day of field work, ends up being like 2 to 3 days of write-up. So it's like you do 1 day of field work, basically that's almost a week's worth of work, because we're pretty detailed on the reports. So, but we'd like to get all the field work completed, ideally in March for the public buildings. We'll then be working with the 2 schools as we can with this days that they're either professional development days, whatever closure days, obviously school vacation. It's probably, the elementary school will probably be at least 2 days. And the high school, I imagine, would be 2 to 3 days. So it's probably at least 5 days of field work. So we need to balance that out. And then once we have no more snow and everything's dried up and there's not mud, we'll be getting to your outside areas probably not until May or so. So in terms of meetings, yes, if there's updates, I mean, it'd be helpful once we actually have some things done. So like some benchmarks. So benchmark might be when the public buildings are done. If you want us to give a general update of what kind of things we found, maybe when the schools are done, when the rec areas are done, if that's fine. If I mean, this is not a big deal, especially if we can do a Zoom meeting. I mean, I live in Holyoke, so to me, it's not a big deal. But if we do a hybrid meeting, and if Mike lives in Millbury, so that's like an hour plus for him. So if you do a Zoom meeting or hybrid meeting, that's fine. Quick update on things, that's not a problem. Not at all.
Yeah, so I have a question. So yeah, Jeff Baird was talking about the sidewalks, and we recently conducted a survey where there was kind of an overwhelming response about the inadequacy of the sidewalks, and not like mostly not specific points, but as the sidewalks as a network. And I don't know, I was wondering how is there a way that you can evaluate, like come up with a plan for that with the appreciation of that the sidewalks are useful as a network and not as an isolated a collection of isolated facilities.
Yeah, not trying. Am I on mute or am I not on mute?
I can hear you.
Okay. So we've got I'm not trying to answer that. So we've got a number of streets specifically that we've been asked to look at, and I don't know how many, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, some neighborhood areas. Let me answer that by what we do, and I may not answer your question, but it might give you a better idea. So we on sidewalks, right at the upfront, again, we have a front end piece about what all the requirements are. We look at the ADA standards, 521, PROAG, and we have a summary of what everything should be on the curb ramps, on the sidewalks. So if you're talking the sidewalks, the clear widths, the widths themselves, abrupt changes in level services, protruding objects, which typically are guy wires or often telephone poles or mailboxes, and then your curb ramps themselves. So we have a general, these are the standards. So if basically there are streets that we're not asked to look at, what these are the requirements up front. So then when we go and do the streets, and often just neighborhoods or major corridors, we will be specific. So we'll walk a length of a street or walk a neighborhood, and we'll identify, okay, might be in general the areas of deterioration, general condition, but we'll identify specific areas if there's maybe a raised manhole cover. Maybe in some cases you've come across where there's been a change in how they reconfigured the sidewalk, and there's a granite curbing somehow across the sidewalk because it changed direction, and now that's an abrupt change in level service greater than 1/4 inch and not doubled. And then we provide specifically areas if there are non-compliant curb ramps, no level landing. We'll give the location where it is, excessive cross slopes. I mean running slopes. If there are areas along a route of travel where there's excessive cross slopes where it comes to a driveway, because cross slopes should be at 2%, and unless the whole sidewalk is governed because of a topography issue, most often we will see the regular sidewalk, but then because of with the creation of the driveway and vehicles not want to bottom out, ends up being that they also rechange the slope of the sidewalk, which is a problem in a wheelchair when you're coming on a slope like that. We identify those areas. We identify the protruding objects, if they're guy wires, if they're telephone poles or mailboxes that restrict the route of travel to less than 36 inches. We identify, just a whole, any of those obstructions that occur on that section of road. So I guess in general, we have specific areas of identification per what we're asked to look at, and then we have a general statement in the beginning of what everything all should be. All the streets and sidewalks, curb ramps in the city or town should adhere to these standards. So your DPW director, whomever, foreman of highway, could look at that and say, yeah, geez, that really doesn't need it in this neighborhood. So they didn't know what to do.
I see.
Could I ask a quick follow-up question on that? In your timeline, do you have a sense of when you would do the sidewalk assessments?
It's probably going to be close to the end.
Okay.
Because
I was thinking that maybe, because we just had this conversation at the meeting beforehand, and I'm going to ask Jamie, I think if Jamie and I kind of looked at the list and came up with a plan and maybe a map, if we if we had a chance to talk to the commission at their April 5th meeting and then gave you kind of the direction that we would hope you could go, because I think your answer was no, that your project will not be able to evaluate the entire network. But if we could get a map to the commission on April 5th and make sure that the streets that we are going to evaluate are at least highly traveled ways, would that still give you enough time to then plug that into your schedule if we confirmed in early April the streets that we would hope you could look at? Understanding that I don't think you can do the whole network. I think that that's beyond the scope, but is that potentially doable? I think we had a core list. It was basically the downtown area. And I think we included Pleasant Street. I believe we included Cottage Street. We want to skip Union Street because it's going to be entirely redone. I think maybe we did Main Street. And maybe, I'm thinking of another route, which is South Street. And I'm trying to think of these areas that are going to be hot, or Williston Ave. So there's a couple of the streets that have come up in the past. So Jim or Mike, can we come back to you in early April with a list of streets?
Yeah, I think that shouldn't be a problem. I guess there's only two things, and it's not a cost issue. And the same thing, actually, you saw the email, Jamie and I, because the senior center was left off the list. I said, no, so that's no big deal. We'll do the senior center. The only issue might be if it's something drastically changing, because you have a deadline, which actually, it's going to add on 2 more weeks or something like that. You have a deadline with Mass Office of Disability. So to stick with the plan to meet your yours and ours June 30th deadline, but there's something extra, so that's going to take an extra week and a half. We can't make it by June 30th. As long as we can do that by June 30th, I mean, after June 30th, and then you just modify the plan and, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So we've done it before with some cities in town. Actually, at Southport, to be honest, we did their plan, and now we're 3/4 of the way through, and here it is in May. And they said, well, we want you to do our schools now. Well, they had 4 schools. It actually took us 2.5 months to do their schools. So they said, okay, we'll keep it out of the scope for the MOD grant, due June 30th. And we ended up doing the schools over the summer, and we just modified the grant, the plan rather, in September. We were completed, and it worked fine. So yeah, as long as it doesn't, if there's increase in time, will just give us flexibility that we stick to the scope for June 30th, and if it do extra, if it is a lot of extra after the deadline, we just modify the plan at that time.
Okay.
Yep. And this is Mike. Yeah, a map would be good, especially if they have the actual addresses. And speaking of addresses, if I know especially the outdoor properties, if we can have street addresses or addresses close enough that one could put in their map navigation system, so we can find them. I know Jim's a little more familiar with Easthampton than I am. Me, I've been in Easthampton a few times, again for playing on your bike paths, but otherwise, I'm certainly not going to know where a lot of your park and rec areas are.
Does anybody else have any questions? Jeff, did you want to say something?
I was just going to have Jamie can kind of coordinate with you on the map. I think that's feasible.
Any more questions? Jim and Mike, that was great. Thank you for all that information.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, you're welcome. It was a pleasure. And just remember when, if you have any questions, you have our contact information. So, feel free to, contact us. If you contact via email, you may just want to identify that, you sit on the Easthampton, Disability Commission or you're a staff member.
Great. Thank you, guys. Yeah, it was great. Are there any other things that folks, Jim and Mike, if you have to go, you can totally go. We're just gonna wrap up our meeting here, or you can stay. It's up to you. So.
Oh, we're working on ADA write-ups, so I think we have to go, right? So I have to go.
All right.
And
Thank
Mike's always
you.
got meetings going on, so he's probably gonna go too. So,
Yep. Same here. Yeah. This is the third meeting, like right in a row, back to back to back.
Wow.
So yeah. So I got to kind of
take a break.
Yep. So take care. It was a pleasure, meeting you folks, and again, it's a pleasure working with you and Jamie and Jeff and you commission members. So take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Before we go, Marty, didn't you have something you wanted to say?
It can wait to another meeting.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no urgency at all. Just I'll bring it up in the future.
Okay. All right. So it's 12 o'clock. And as Jeff said, our next meeting is April 5th. I guess making a motion to end the meeting. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Did you want to try to figure out when the next survey committee meeting is?
I'll send an email.
Okay.
I'm going to try to do like a poll so we can get a definite time.
We can use Doodle.
Okay, that would be awesome. Can you help me with that then?
Yes.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you for everything today.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.